Hey there, second graders. Time for Mrs. Piggle-Wiggle. We are now on chapter 7, The Slow Eater Tiny Bite Taker Cure. Here's a picture. All right, here we go. Once upon a time, there was a little boy named Alan. He had curly brown hair and sturdy legs and a very shiny smile. One morning, he sat down to breakfast, but instead of picking up his spoon and eating his mush and milk like a good little boy, he took a fork and began eating his cereal grain by grain. When his mother, certain that he had eaten all of his mush, brought him his eggs, he was still on the 11th grain of cereal. Alan's mother said, "My goodness, you are so poky this morning, dear. What is the matter? Is the mush too hot?" Then she noticed that Alan was eating his cereal with a fork. So she took the fork away and handed him a spoon, saying, "Now this, eat properly and hurry with your egg will get cold." Alan took the spoon instead of Alan took the spoon, but instead of filling it with mush, he daintily lifted one grain from the bowl and slowly brought it to his mouth. His mother watched him for a few minutes and then said, "Well, eat the ice cold egg if you like, but I'm going upstairs to sort laundry. And when I come down, I want to find every bit of that mush and all of that egg eaten." Alan's mother went skipping upstairs and left Alan in the breakfast nook. As soon as his mother left the kitchen, Alan picked up the fork again and began eating his mush, but grain by grain. In a little while, even a whole grain seemed to take too much, so he broke each grain into two, taking only half of the grain on his fork. So he was so interested in his little bitty bites that he didn't hear his mother come in and was very surprised when she whisked away the breakfast and sent him marching up to his room. At lunchtime, Alan's mother made cream of tomato soup. This was Alan's very favorite soup. But Alan, instead of eating it up quickly and asking for more, began floating little specks of crackers in the bowl. He floated, chased, and ate them one by one. At 2 o'clock, his mother stopped the little cracker crumb chase, sadly cleared the table, and sent Alan up for a nap. At dinner that night, Alan cut his meat into such small pieces that his father looked over at him and said, "Perhaps you would like to borrow my magnifying glass? I'm sure you are going to need it to see those little teeny tiny bits of meat." Alan's mother said, "He has been like this all day, eating his mush grain by grain with his fork, floating tiny cracker crumbs in his soup and chasing them and eating them one by one, and now this meat. What is the matter with you, Alan?" Alan smiled his shining smile and said, "I guess I'm just a slow eater. I choke if I take larger bites." His mother said, "Nonsense. You were all right yesterday." Alan said sadly, "Yes, mother, but that was yesterday." And he carefully cut a grain of corn into 4 pieces and delicately put the smallest piece into his mouth. The next morning, he had not improved a bit, and though his mother scolded and scolded, he took the smallest bites imaginable. To make matters worse, he sighed and gazed around the room between each bite. Alan's mother was very distressed to know that not knowing what else to do, so she called her friend Mrs. Crankminer. "Good morning, Mrs. Crankminer," said Alan's mother. "This is Alan's mother, and I called to ask if you have ever had any difficulty with Witherroll about eating." "Difficulty?" asked Mrs. Crankminer. "Just what kind of eating difficulty?" "Well," said Alan's mother, "Alan is suddenly taking to eating so slowly that if I didn't take his plate away, I'm sure it would take him approximately 12 hours to eat an average meal. He eats his cereal green by green, his soup drop by drop, and his meat pour by pour." "Goodness gracious, is the child ill?" asked Mrs. Crankminer. "No, he says he's feeling fine, and I have taken his temperature, and it is normal. I don't know what the trouble is," said Alan's poor mother, worried. Mrs. Crankminer said, "I certainly have no complaint about Witherwall's eating. My only difficulty is getting him to stop. Yesterday morning before breakfast, he weighed 182 pounds, and his father began calling him Blimpy. Oh my, said Alan's mother. I guess you have more of a serious problem than I. And she hung up the phone. Then she called her friend, Mrs. Wingsproggle. Mrs. Wingsproggle, she said, do you have any trouble with pergola at mealtimes? Mrs. Wingsproggle said very carefully, no, not exactly trouble, but we have a keep up after her to chew each mouthful 100 times, and sometimes she is forgetful and only chews her food about 93 times, and one day I caught her stopping at 71. Alan's mother could already picture how disastrous it might be if Alan thought that Pergola Wingsproggle chewed each bite 100 times, because if she multiplied each grain of mush in a dish by 100, it took on account of unbelievable slowness with Alan would be able to chew, and realize that he would die of a slow starvation before a day had passed. Alan's mother hurriedly said goodbye to Mrs. Wingsproggle and hung up the phone. All right. What do you think is going to happen to Alan? Oh no. Make a prediction. I'll see you next time.